What's going on? Welcome back to Movies Recapped. Today I found another hidden gem. City of Foshan, martial arts thrive and various schools recruit disciples and respectfully compete against each other. We follow Master Lu as he inaugurates his martial arts school, looking extremely happy about the whole thing. Afterwards, Master Lu decides to go visit Master Ip at his house. He wants to see Ip in action, as Ip is a highly respectable martial artist who is a master of the Wingchun technique. Lu comes in peace, proposing a friendly match. He says that whoever wins will not disclose the name of the loser. Master Lu agrees and promises to uphold the condition of the match. But he is in the middle of dinner with his family and invites Lu to join them, expressing Chinese hospitality. Lu agrees, and they all share a meal. After the food, Lu and Ip face off against each other, and Master Ip is able to easily defeat Lu. They part ways on good terms, both of them agreeing not to say the name of the loser of the match. But unbeknownst to them, a young man named Yuan has been watching the entire match from the window. He goes around town and spreads the news of the match, the details spreading around like wildfire. We then meet a guy named Lin, who is Yuan's older brother. Lin owns his own restaurant, which Ip visits. Ip is there to meet a businessman named Chao Chen. Chen has a business proposal to share with Master Ip. As they begin talking, Lin comes around to serve their food, and in his excitement, starts talking to Master Ip about his fight with Master Lu. Lin is also Master Lu's student, and like most people in the community, is passionate about martial arts. He tells Master Ip how Yuan had told him about the fight. Chen then asks Lin to leave them alone, and offers partnership to Ip of his cotton mill. This is because Master Ip is not simply a master in Wing Chun, but is also very wealthy. Outside, Lu finds out how Yuan has been spreading the news about him losing to Ip, and gets very humiliated and angry. He grabs Yuan in anger, but Lin comes to Yuan's rescue. To prove himself, Yuan walks into the restaurant to ask Master Ip and set the record straight. But Ip doesn't say anything, because he is sworn to secrecy. This makes Lin angry, and he berates Yuan. The crowd that has gathered around the restaurant attracts a police inspector, Inspector Li. The inspector bullies everyone, and even points a gun at Ip. But Ip calmly puts his hand over the gun, and breaks it, separating the barrel with 2 fingers. Later he visits Master Lu, and apologizes to him on behalf of everything that happened because of Yuan. When Ip gets home, he is visited by his friend Chen. Ip offers to give Chen money for the mill, but refuses the partnership offer entirely. Just then, Lin visits Ip's house, and says he wants to practice with him, having learned some new moves. Ip, never one to walk away from anything related to martial arts, agrees, and the two of them begin. While this is happening, we are shown Ip's wife and child, who are keeping themselves busy on the side. The son makes a drawing that he wants to show his father, and rushes over to him. But Ip is busy practicing with Lin, and dismisses his son. This angers Ip's wife, and she makes the two men stop their fighting, expressing her displeasure at Ip ignoring his family, and not spending time with them. We then see a man named Jean entering Foshan. He is a kung fu master, and wants to be the best, so that he can open his own school, and everyone will come to him for instruction. In order to prove that he is the best, he decides to challenge all the masters in town. He beats 2 of them very easily, and then goes to Lu. Lu is also defeated by Jean. Meanwhile, Lin goes to tell Ip about the latest happenings in town, and warns him that Jean will visit him soon to challenge him as well. This proves to be true, and Jean gathers a large crowd, and comes to challenge Ip. Ip's wife doesn't want him to fight, but when Jean starts taunting and provoking Ip is forced to defend his honor. There follows an awesome fight, in which Ip kicks Jin's ass with his calm expertise, using a broom against Jin's sword. Ultimately Jean is defeated, and leaves in humiliation. Thus, we get to see how Ip leads a happy life, with a good respectful reputation in the city. He visits the town with his family, and is showered with gifts by people, who want to show their appreciation for him. He returns home to see a crowd gathered outside his house, consisting of people who have been hearing rumors, that Ip will teach them how to fight. These rumors have been spread by Inspector Li Xiao. As the crowd begins to chant his name, Ip ignores them and enters his home. This scene of a happy routine transitions into a stormy sky, as planes fly across the screen. We learn that in 1937, the Marco Polo incident took place, and Japan invaded China, robbing people of their livelihood, and causing rampant starvation across the country. We see scenes of a war-torn China, with bleak images of people being harassed and killed by Japanese soldiers, as the Japanese flag flies against a dreary backdrop. In 1938, the city of Foshan is invaded as well, with its buildings, factories and infrastructure all being torn apart as a result. And the population of the once thriving hub of martial arts and enthusiastic disciples has been reduced from 300,000 to a mere 70,000. only a dozen factories remain functioning. We see IP's grand house deserted, as we get to know that his home was confiscated, rendering him and his family homeless, living an abject existence. While the home is turned into the headquarters of the Japanese army in Foshan, IP and his family have run out of food. Saddened at the sight of his family, IP sells an old family watch and goes out to buy some grain. He runs into Chen, who takes IP to his factory and offers him partnership again. But again, IP refuses and returns home. Soon, IP's wife falls ill, and there is no money for her medication, so IP starts working as a coolie in a coal mine. There he meets Lin and they bond over the past. During their lunch break, Lin tells IP that ever since the incident with Master Lu, Yuan ran away from home, and no one knows if he's even alive or not. He then begins to look for a silver box that he lost amidst the coal. A few army jeeps arrive, from which comes out Inspector Li, who is now working as a translator for the Japanese military. He is here to recruit Chinese workers who know martial arts to compete against Japanese fighters. Winners will get a bag of rice as a reward. Lin agrees to take part, even though IP tells him not to go. The Japanese General Miura, who is a karate master himself, has established an arena where Chinese martial artists will compete with his military trainees. When Lin arrives there, General Miura decides to compete against 3 Chinese fighters. Lin is one of the 3 fighters. After seeing Miura's skill, the other 2 fighters yield, but Lin continues to face off against the Japanese general. But Miura is a deadly fighter, and Lin stands no chance against him. Lin is badly beaten and dies soon after. The next day while working, he finds the silver box Lin was looking for, but he's unable to find Lin anywhere. When Li Zhao arrives to get more fighters, IP asks about Lin, but doesn't get an answer. Worried about Lin, IP decides to go with Li Zhao to investigate. When he arrives there, he sees Master Lu, who has just won a fight. He takes his bag of rice when 3 Japanese competitors arrive, and Lu starts fighting them as well. But he is unable to defeat them and gives up. As he walks away, he picks up his previously won bag of rice, but is mercilessly shot by Colonel Sato. IP is enraged to see this, and doubly so when he figures that Lin was killed in a previous fight. IP is not able to contain his anger, and impulsively challenges 10 karate fighters. Now, IP hasn't practiced his Wing Chun ever since the invasion began, as he wanted to conserve what little food and resources his family had. But despite his lack of practice, IP manages to annihilate the 10 karatekas, with a brutal yet efficient barrage of his martial art mastery, showing barely any of the restraint he exhibited in previous engagements. His skill arouses the interest of Miura, who seeks to learn more about IP, and see him fight again. IP is awarded his share of the winnings, but he doesn't take them. Instead, he picks up Lu's bag that he had won, and delivers it to his house. On the way, he runs into Li Zhao and confronts him for being a traitor, but Li Zhao defends himself by saying that he has no choice if he wants to survive. We then see Jin, who along with his gang ambushes a truck of supplies. Yuan is also a part of this gang. Jin and his gang overpower the truck, and then go visit Chen. He blackmails Chen for money in exchange for the truck of supplies. Meanwhile, Chen's son goes to find IP for help. By the time IP arrives, Jin has left, leaving instructions for the money to be arranged. IP agrees to train the factory workers in Wing Chun for them to be able to protect themselves. Meanwhile, Miura grows impatient when IP does not return to the arena and sends his men to get him. These soldiers harass IP's family, and IP incapacitates them. IP and his family are then forced to go into hiding at Li Zhao's house. Meanwhile, the robbers return to the cotton mill to demand money. The workers fight back using the techniques that IP taught them. Just then, IP appears and defeats Jin, warning him never to harass the workers again. IP talks to Yuan, telling him about Lin's death. He hands Yuan the silver box that Lin wanted Yuan to have, and inside is Yuan's kite. Seeing this, Yuan begins to cry. The Japanese soldiers eventually find IP at the cotton mill. Miura tells IP that his life will be spared if he agrees to instruct the Japanese soldiers in martial arts. IP refuses and challenges Miura to a match, which Miura accepts because of his love for martial arts, and because refusing the challenge would be a humiliation to the Japanese. The match between IP and Miura is held in public in Foshan Square. At first, the 2 fighters seem equally matched, but Miura becomes overwhelmed and is unable to fend off IP's attacks, as he effortlessly uses him as a wooden dummy, inflicting a severe beating on him and clearly winning. As the beaten general lies down after his defeat, IP looks over to the crowd and hears the Chinese cheering him. Within the crowd, he spots his wife and child with Chow. Just then, Miura's deputy Sato shoots IP. This sparks a scuffle between the Chinese audience and the Japanese soldiers. During the scuffle, Li Zhao kills Sato with his own gun. IP is taken away amidst the chaos. it is revealed that he survives and escapes to Hong Kong with his family. There, IP establishes a Wing Chun school where his students come to train, including Bruce Lee. Hope you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing, it is free. Cancel anytime.